The rest of them, yes.
Like Eric and
Yeah.
What do you mean you can't turn my phone while recording?
Family, like they kind of like in our family. I'm a original Birch.
Yeah. So you relate to the Birch that's in Warren?
All of them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Everybody. Yeah.
When I was in the, I was about to say, when I was doing the drill team.
Oh yeah.
You in there? Everybody getting in the shop? All right, cool.
Small world, man.
Get a lot of the community activism off of him.
Who's that?
My cousin, Birch.
Oh, okay.
Pretty cool.
Okay. So, you ready, Joe? So, first and foremost, we would like to officially thank you for coming on and being part of this. Today we having, this is our fourth.
This is number 4.
It's number 4 on our podcast, trying to build something for the community to get educated from and it's number 4 on our podcast, trying to build something for the community to get educated.
Oh, yeah.
How you turn it? Or do I turn the phone?
Yeah, you gotta turn the phone.
Then everybody gonna get in the shop. I ain't even gonna worry about it.
Maybe not.
So today on the podcast Pros and Cons, we have a brother out of Warren, Ohio,
Yes, sir.
by the name of Jesse Howard.
Yes, sir.
Howard.
Yes, sir.
By the name of Jesse Howard, who's going to be talking to us and talking with us about victim awareness.
Yes, sir.
And how impactful, I would say, decisions and crimes actually affect us in our communities and how they're possibly interrelated to one another.
Mm-hmm.
Is that safe to say?
Yes, sir.
So before we do that, I just want to go around it because we haven't done anything for a couple of weeks. We got my bro back. We got Big Bro back. So, I just want to go around the table real quick. And, it's the new year, fresh. Everybody just briefly, talk about what their expectations is of themselves or what their goal is as far as personally or trying to move the needle community-wise. I'm going to start with Darnell.
Well, with me, once I set my plans in motion, I will continue on trying to strengthen that, my fitness training, my real estate development, and just trying to be a better person overall. So with that, with those areas that you always can use improvement. So I always look at it like, I'm not where I want to be, but I have to continue to work at it to get where I want to be. So those are my goals going forward through the new year. And basically the rest of my life.
Mr. Howard, you want to?
Yeah, man, I chime in there. For me, it's about honestly, man, I want to, as far as community is concerned too, because I feel like it affects the community. I want to get rid of my poor man's mentality. Honestly. That to me is like the biggest thing. I know that community college is awesome, state college is awesome, but I want my kids to know other options and understand, HBCUs, understand, that there is such thing as a Yale or a Harvard or a Howard University that they can attend that I never knew about, or scholarships that they can get. Like, I didn't know you can get a scholarship for volleyball when I was in high school. You know what I'm saying? I would have loved to join wrestling and say, yeah, I ain't know that, so I feel like exposing myself to get rid of a poor man's mentality, You know, sometimes it's better to just go ahead and buy bulk instead of just penny pinching stuff, just from the littlest thing to the biggest thing. I feel like just evacuating that mentality out for me is my goals, and that also means entrepreneurship and just getting it done. You know, so that's what I feel.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback on that. That's kind of always my goal, like in building a community. Build a community by building entrepreneurs. And the best way to do that, like I found out for me, is barbering. Barbering is one of the best ways to reach your community, stay in the community, and build entrepreneurship at the same time. And so to be able to do that, of course, there's other avenues of entrepreneurship, but for me in barbering, that's how I build business, and I teach business. I teach a business class around that and around just being able to be an entrepreneur within my industry. Like, it doesn't have to be just about barbering, just about cutting hair. There's other avenues within it. So I like to teach within those avenues from exactly where I am. Like, what I know is what I teach. So, and that's how you kind of build a community and a business and entrepreneurs at the same time. So get them out of that poor man's mentality. You can have it yourself, and you can help grow your community at the same time.
I like that. How you feeling? Are you feeling good?
I'm awesome.
We missed you, man. We missed you.
Today is actually an awesome day. One of the best days I've had since I've recovered from COVID. So it's been pretty good. Feeling good.
So that's real.
It's definitely real.
It's definitely real.
It's definitely
real.
I've never questioned the reality of it. I just, I was taking all the precautions I could not to catch it. Just hearing the stories about it. I'm kind of glad I do the things that I do. Because of cycling and all that other stuff. I was able to. My respiratory system was good, but it still kind of was affected. So I know. If somebody had a worse respiratory system than I, then I know the definite disadvantages. Anybody can easily be taken out, like asthmatic wise.
Right.
So it was a rough bout, but I'm here.
Made it through it, baby.
Made it through it.
I was one who initially was like, man, this is some BS, man. And then I wound up knowing several people who was affected by it. I'm like, okay, maybe this ain't no BS. Like, right. I might have to be a little more, because I didn't want to wear a mask. I still don't like wearing masks. I will wear a mask, especially when I'm in a group of people. But I don't like wearing them, because I have a breathing problem. That's one of the reasons why I don't like wearing them, because it makes it even harder for me to breathe, right? But I don't want no COVID either. No. I talk a lot of stuff, especially to my sister, and I talk a lot of stuff, but I don't want none of that either, man. So, hey, peace, Ken. Happy New Year.
This ain't one to be tough about.
Yeah, right. So I'm trying not to, man. I'm trying to make sure I steer clear of it. For me, we just went around the table, just really talk about, what our goals for the New Year's are, personally, community-wise, just real brief. And for me personally, I said it the other day, I want to be, my mantra, I'm trying to make my mantra, what I said was, physically better, mentally stronger, and spiritually calmer. That's my personal goal for this New Year. Trying to tighten up. I believe every time we come around and God has blessed us with another year to be on this earth, man, we got to get a little better than we was last year. If it's just something subtle, minute, you got to be able to tell, man, that you got to be able to look in the mirror and say, yeah, I made it beneficial. That He allowed me to be up on top of the soil one more year. So that's me personally. Community-wise, man, I got some ideas for the kids that I need to actually want to run by you guys. But I really want to get more involved. Like, we do more stuff with the kids. I want to use, you said something interesting about barbering, and I always looked at barbering as almost like Grand Central Station, but as a very key component to doing community work, because everybody come through there. You always run across somebody And you know what I'm saying? So, and you said something a while back before, as far as being in an ear and having an ear, right? But I always knew that being a barber gave me access to the community.
For sure.
But this year I want to focus on getting my 501c3, and I really want to start moving towards having a center. I know it's not going to necessarily happen in this year, but I really want to start making the steps. I want to finish my book this year. That's one of my goals, and just really, man, just what they call pull your sleeves up, man, and just. I said something on my Facebook before the other day. I said I want people to think it's three of me. I want people to think it's three of me, man. People like somebody told me before, you trying to suck every moment out of life. I'm like, yeah. Now I'm trying to suck even more than that. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, because it's just so much I want to try to do, man, establish. And it may sound selfish when I say this, but I believe, and it is, but I believe my community will benefit from it, and that's my legacy, man. I'm real big on changing my narrative of who I was and leaving a legacy, man. When people, I always say this, when it's time for me to die, when I die, and people come to my funeral, ain't nobody got to lie when they talk about me. So in that, I know, and so in striving to accomplish that, I know that I'm going to be able to do a lot of good things for the people around me and for my community. So that's what my goals is personally.
It's on me?
It's on you,
I
brother.
walked in. I don't know. I can't say that I had like these set things that I wanted, for this year. I think overall, I just wanted to make sure that I grew. I want to make sure that I've grown from 2021 to 2022. Whether it's, business-wise, mentally, and even as you said, even spiritually. You know what I mean? I do want to make sure those are my driving forces. But at the same time, I just want to make sure I'm a better person than I was in 2021 when it comes to 2022. I got a few goals. I mean, I want to extend my family a little bit.
Okay.
My guy.
I want to build some things so that I'm leaving something for the next generation. Being with my daughter. I want to make sure I got something established that she can walk into. You know what I mean? So I know I've been thinking about getting into a few different things, stock market wise, just trying to learn that game a little bit. So I know that's another challenge of mine, just to make sure that generationally something's set up again. So when she get 18 years old, you got this to work with now.
Right.
You know what I mean? I've been listening to this one guy. He goes by Wall Street Trapper.
Okay. I thought you were about to say my little brother. My little brother's Wall Street West. He everywhere, man.
This guy named Wall Street Trapper, man. He breaks it down in a way that I never really heard anybody do it before. He's on this podcast called Earn Your Leisure that I've been kind of listening to over the past few weeks. And it's a lot of knowledge, man. Them two guys, they break some stuff down pretty well, man. So I guess that'll be my thing this year. If I want to look at something, I want to tap into a new market and learn something new that I haven't done before.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, you good? Okay. So, like I said, we got a brother out of Warren who came via Tanisha?
Yeah, Tamisha.
Tamisha.
Yes, sir.
Please make sure I get it right, because I don't
It's all
want to jump
good,
over
man.
if I say her name wrong. Who actually works down here with Dion, and she told me her brother was a parole officer and a victim awareness facilitator. And I know when I came through prison, I actually took victim awareness twice, and I really believe that, amongst a couple other things, was very key to actually getting my freedom, right? Because they were so impressed that I took it twice. Because a lot of guys won't even take it once, and then if they do take it, they don't really want to do the work, because there's some work that has to be done in it, and in doing that work, it forces you to acknowledge certain realities. And so a lot of guys shy away from it. When I first took it, and I won't lie to you, I took it because I knew I needed that certificate for the parole board. And I took it like 20 years before I even went to the parole board. But they tell you, you come in prison, they tell you, these are the list of things that you might want to get done. So I'm like, okay, I'm just marking them off, and then I ain't gonna worry about the rest of my prison stay. But then as I started evolving as a man, I really wanted to understand. So I wound up asking, because they wouldn't let me back in because I already had it. So I wound up asking the sister who facilitated, can I just sit in the class? Just let me sit in. And she's like, all right. Fortunately for me, it was a lot of brothers who wouldn't show up. So she wanted to let me participate, and then wanted to give me a certificate again. and I actually wrote a letter and stuff like that, right? So I learned a lot from the inside out, but I'm very curious as someone who teaches it out here, who does it out here, the perspective from out here too, right? So when Tamisha asked me, I said something, I said, oh, I'm definitely down. I'm pretty sure the brothers will be down. So with that being said, please.
So I got some stuff that we may not even need or use or whatever, just to give a synopsis or even a reminder, you know what I mean, of stuff that you may have heard before or things like that. But in taking the class as a facilitator, I know the class itself is a 13-week class, 12 or 13-week class. And I know there's variables depending on who's teaching and stuff like that. But it's like a 12 or 13-week class. You do get a certification. It started in the 90s inside the prison system in London. It started there, and it branched outside to the community for ex-offenders and things like that. But when I see stuff and when I go through it, I see, you know, I try to look at it in every scheme. So for me, just going through it and sitting through it as somebody that was going to facilitate it, I was impacted by it. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, man, this is tight. Like it's just hitting on certain topics that I just never even thought about. Mm-hmm. It's hitting on certain things that when I grew up, or certain normalities when I grew up, that I grew up thinking that this was normal. And when you get exposed to a healthy emotional or mental state, mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying, you realize that you really kind of messed up mm-hmm. yourself. You know what I mean? Whether you, you know what I mean, whether you're in the system or out the system, just breeze by. You know what I'm saying? You really find out that, man, that was some messed up stuff. So that's what that. And listen, I ain't, you know what I mean, just jump in. I got things to go through, but that's just so that way, you know what I mean, I can present them. But it ain't gotta, you know what I mean, jump in and let me know what you think. You know, if you feel differently, if you experience differently or whatever else like that.
One question before
yes, sir.
Start.
Yeah.
How old are you?
38.
38. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Get that perspective.
Is that young?
Yeah, it's younger than me.
I was hoping, you know what I'm saying? I was hoping I wanted to say that because, you know what I'm saying, I'm about to be a grandfather of my son. Yeah. You know, my son needs to know I'm young. Yeah. So I wanted to kind of get that confirmation.
I just say, prior to Ryan stepping in, you were the youngest in the building.
You know what I'm saying? You know, my son, my nephew, they need to know I'm young. You know what I'm saying? Put that in there. Yeah.
They don't think so.
And
At 25, you old as hell.
I showed them Lethal Weapon. I took them and I was like, man, check Lethal Weapon out, man. They're like, man, this is corny, man. I'm like, what's wrong with you, man? This is the best movie ever. Yeah, that was crazy. Like the fight scene. I'm like, really? Over Cobra Kai? You like?
Hey, Cobra Kai kind of alright, though.
It is.
The first 5 episodes, I was like, man, how did they make it?
It was a little corny, but
the story was sick. The story was good.
Yeah.
Man.
What is Cobra Kai?
It's like a rendition of the old Karate Kid.
Yeah.
Like Mr. Miyagi, Daniel's son, Johnny, all them cats. Yeah. So they brought them all back now. So Johnny and Daniel's son got their own dojo.
It's still going, but it's still
the fight it ain't all up there like you know what I mean, but it still is good.
Watch it.
They still doing the same moves though.
Yeah,
they still look like Taekwondo basic. I don't see no
yellow belt.
I don't see no jujitsu or judo, nothing.
So let me ask you this. Actually, you know, try to start off.
Yes, sir.
What made you want to become a victim awareness facilitator?
You know, Mr. Vince Peterson Sr.
Out of Warren.
Yeah, out of Warren.
Yeah.
He the one that took me, you know, he's one of the ones that helped me out when I was a youth and I was a troubled youth and stuff like that. And when he sat down with me, you know, it was just like, it was my first time sitting down with somebody besides the one I was coming with, my great uncle, over the church. But it was my first time, you know, seeing somebody that was, I don't know, his presence was just ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So in any event, you know, after, you know what I mean, I got into because I was in prison for 7 years. I was a CO for 7 years. So after I got out of the prison, when I went to him, and I asked him about, like, I got a job at the joint, you know what I mean? So it's gonna be cool. He was like, do everything and learn everything that they want you to learn. That was his thing. And so So I did it. So when I first heard about it, they were saying, "Hey, what you think about this?" I didn't know what it was at first, but I was willing to look into it. And when I got there and I found out what it was, I was stoked. I was hooked.
So victim awareness, like, can you break down the class a little bit, or like exactly what it is?
All right. So victim awareness is getting the offenders to recognize the perspective of the victim side of things. That's what the whole thing is about. Now, that's sort of the classical definition of it, and that's what they do. You know what I mean? That's what it's about. You have victim impact statements. People come in and speak. You have people come in that say, this is what it was like, whether it be drunk driving, or this is what it was like when I got stolen from, or it gets rid of the mindset of sometimes what we masquerade on as, like, you know, I ain't hurt nobody if I do this or that, you know what I'm saying? Or it does that type of thing. And it really reconnects you to some real issues. Like, they do some deep scenarios, some deep stuff. If the person is teaching right, they do some deep scenarios, some real stuff that reconnect you with another perspective that sometimes we miss. So for me, in my opinion, the way I would say it is that there's things that desensitize us and dehumanize us in life that we go through, traumas, exposures, whatever, and it reconnects you with what it feels like to be human. You see the devastation I caused, whether it be just stealing something or whether it be a lifestyle of substance abuse, whatever it is. So that's how I break down. And some of their topics, and so what their topics are, is community justice, cultural barriers, media issues, property crime, ID theft, substance abuse, drunk driving, domestic violence, and stalking, family violence, sexual abuse, homicide, forgiveness, and making amends, you know, and reentry. And so it deals with those. And just to highlight a few of them that I kind of got a crush on. You know, community justice is one that I thought about because I never thought about community justice being like understanding the accountability and healing for the community. You know what I'm saying? When something happens, and if it's just us in this room and we are our own community, when I do something against you, whether it be unethical, whether it be taking something that's yours or not paying you something that I owe you, it affects us as a whole, as a community. You know what I'm saying? Because it does things invisibly, you know what I'm saying, to us. And so community justice is one of those. It also acknowledges the pain and hurt and fear experienced by victims and the community. And one of the examples that I like to do when I deal with it, when I'm dealing with this topic, period, even with youth sometimes, is one of the examples I did is I had a basketball hoop behind me, and I asked the youth, I was like, you know, see how many you can get, see how many baskets you can get in this hoop. So they'll run up and do the baskets, however many in 60 seconds. Then I do it again, and I say, all right, you know what I'm saying, do it with me standing in front of you. And so they'll find out that it's a little bit less. And then one time I said, all right, now, and I called somebody up, and they didn't know I had it planned ahead of time, but I called somebody up to that they didn't really know, you know what I'm saying, to do that, to stand up there. And I said, just wait 1 second. And I love little toys and gadgets, like security gadgets. So I had a stun gun, right? And then I turned the stun gun on. Yeah. So I turned the stun gun on, and I was like, all right. So you know, and my wife stood up, and she was like, man, you ain't allowed to do this. And I'm like, yeah, you know, we signed the waivers already. We good. She was like, no, you is not allowed to do this. We can't do it. And I said, yes, we will. We will do it. Now, let me get a volunteer. And nobody volunteered, let alone anybody went up to go do it. And so they asked me what the purpose of that. And there were several different reasons. But just to highlight it, it was just like, what I did is I mentally assaulted you because you really don't know exactly what my thoughts or my plans was. You know, what made you think that I was going to stun you with a stun gun? Right. You know what I'm saying? What made you think that I was actually going to use that? Because I also had my wife get up and act like she was protesting just to have something else to counteract. You know what I mean? So a lot of times as victims, they feel that same way psychologically. The fear that's introduced and that's exposed to them, they don't know how long this is going to last. They don't know what the person's thinking. And I've talked to several, you know, brothers that we grew up with, and they like, man, robbing dude, that's just a part of it. You know what I'm saying? I don't take it personal. That's part of the game. But at the same time, it's like, wait a minute, that's your perspective. But what about the person that don't know that you just was intending on robbing them and moving on? They thought their life was gonna end. You know what I mean? They thought that was their last breath. So it readjusts that perspective, and so that way it makes us expose ourselves to a thought process. You know, to that.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think a lot of people. I mean, I think about it like this: the people that are in the game, or whether it's like you said, ID theft, or if you're in the drug game, whatever the case. A lot of times you get so far up, you don't even really think about what's happening to the people at the bottom. You know what I mean? You have why? You don't got to see it. Really, if you're not really handling it, you ain't into that at all. You just on the outside, you just handling transactions, getting money. But you trickle it down to the bottom, that's trauma that a lot of people are dealing with in most of those cases. Trauma that you can't really deal with. I'll tell you a funny story. And this made me understand what trauma is. So we were in high school, you know, young and dumb, playing games. So we thought it'd be a good idea to act like we were robbing one of our friends. You know what I mean? I mean, we literally dressed up in all black, covered our faces, had BB guns, like everything, full effect. So we go, and another buddy of mine went inside the house, and he was like in on it, but he was there with them. So we kept the door open for us. So we went in there, and we played it all the way out, man, no joke. I won't get into all the details. But from that point on, that friend that we did that to, he kind of handled us differently. Like, he ain't really see us the same. He ain't talk to us like he used to. He still hung with us, but you can tell it was some distance, though. So that really affected him, though. You know what I'm saying? Because he was emotionally, he was encapsulated by the whole thing. And he was crying, he was on his knees, you know, it got bad, you know what I mean? And while we thought it was a game and he knew it was a joke afterwards, I still think to this day, he still hasn't healed from that.
Nah, for sure.
He didn't heal from it.
Because he thought he was going to die.
He thought he was, exactly.
And then I found out it's my boys that done it. Like, so y'all already knew y'all played on my weakness.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things y'all played on my weakness of this. Like, it's never gonna be the same.
Never.
Because I can't trust if y'all might play again. So on the real thing, that might have been just the practice. You know what
now
I mean?
you gotta think we were like we were nothing. We weren't in the streets or nothing like that at all. You know what I mean? We never really did anything like that. But for the sake of that, for that matter in this conversation, I was like, wow. Now I'm sitting back thinking. Like, he really was probably scarred by that. He was scarred by that.
Because, you know, like, you hear about different stuff. You hear about different things. You see different things on the news. And then for it to actually happen, even though it was a joke, it actually happened to him. So, at that moment, it was real for him. So, when y'all told him that was a joke, it wasn't a joke for him.
No, not at all.
Because he still felt... No, it still felt real to him. And so by it feeling real to him, it was like, that's something I can never get over. So by him looking at y'all different, hopefully he, got some help and was able to deal with it. But if he didn't, it's still going to always affect him.
Yeah, for sure, right now.
And that's the crazy thing about exposure, you know what I mean? Like, when you get exposed to stuff, you can heal, and that's the blessing of things, you know what I'm saying? That's the blessing of God when we can get healed from our issues and stuff like that. But the fact of the matter is I got a scar from some damage, you know what I mean? And even though I even got healing, it still may not function the same way as it did before. And that's the crazy thing about exposure. Like, once you put it out there, you can't take it back, you know what I'm saying? And so that's why I love the idea of victim awareness too, because it exposes you to the thought process of somebody, and it reattaches you to the way we should think about the do others as you would want somebody to do unto you. It re-exposes us to that, because if a lot of times it's just ransacking through things, you know what I mean? I've done silly stuff when I was young too, and just ransacking through things. When you want, like, I remember we kicked open a storefront, you know what I'm saying, a window or whatever, and tore everything out the frame. It was all empty. Now, I was gone for 2 weeks afterwards. I wasn't around after that, you know what I mean? But I couldn't imagine the mindset of the guy who just put everything he had into his business. He may have just let his insurance lapse on that or whatever else like that. But the idea, to be exposed to the idea that somebody came to the store as an adult, you know what I mean, and they seen everything they worked for ravished by somebody who is just having fun, you know. Once you expose somebody to that, I don't think the same way, you know what I'm saying?
For sure.
And so that's why I dig that type of exposure. And one of the philosophies, or a few other philosophies, is which you sort of get out of the class would be, it views crime as a violation of people and personal relationships. It holds offenders directly accountable. It holds them to the table accountable, and it creates community partners. And so it offers a balanced approach, and this is just under that topic, that one topic of community justice. It offers a balanced approach to justice, and I put under that, I can't give you what you deserve. So I feel like when I teach, one of the things I stress, especially, you know, whether I teach offenders or I teach COs, one of the things that I stress is that I can't give somebody what they deserve and still stay human myself and still stay healthy myself. You know, you may think that if somebody does something, you know, eye for an eye, if somebody does something, that I can do the same thing back to them. But at the end of the day, you know what I'm saying? I can't really hold that. You do something to my family, I want to do something to your family, but that makes me a monster to beat the monster. You know what I mean? And so I can't give you what you deserve, but that's what I feel like the bridge of justice comes into play. You know what I mean? Because on the other side, there's accountability. You know what I mean? And on this side, on the bridge, we have justice. But on my side, I want revenge. So revenge, the justice portion of that bridge appeases me enough to where, okay, there's at least some accountability on the other side where I don't have to go out and act out the way I feel and just become lawless myself. You know what I mean? And so I think that that's one of those key things. And I told Cass before, like, you know what I mean, I don't mean to be graphic and else like that. You feel like somebody that sexually assaults somebody, they should be sexually assaulted. Many people feel that way, especially the people that are assaulted. But who's going to volunteer to be the county rapist? You know what I'm saying? Right. What kind of person, you know, you won't sit next to that person on the bus. You know what I'm saying? Your kids won't go over his house and play. You know what I mean? And so we think in our minds that revenge, even though it's gratifying, but really it's not. It tears down our community. Really, justice and us being able to sit down and say, how can we hold somebody accountable, but at the same time, let's not do something inhumane and lawless.
That's what I want. I want to ask. So the community aspect, that's one of the things that when I went through it, you know, it was really eye-opening to me. Like, you know, the rock and the water, the ripple effect theory. And so I want to ask you from a facilitator standpoint, let's take something like drug dealing, right? Like B said, you know, a lot of times people really don't, most times, people don't really understand the depths of the impact that does to a person or a community. Can you speak to that a little bit? Just like
I think, you know, my wife, you know what I mean, my wife comes from a family where that was part of their lifestyle. And speaking from her perspective, because I didn't grow up in that type of a situation, but I have seen the effects, like you said, because I listen to a lot of people, I talk to a lot of people. But listening to her specifically about it, it's a ripple effect, because it's not even that they know what's going on at a young age a lot of times. It's really that when they do find out as they got older that that's what that was, it's even a heavier impact. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, the norms that you deal with on a normal everyday basis, because of it, it affects what you consider as normal. And there's certain things, and I'm trying to be choosy about what I'm saying. There's certain things that she can't stand around her that's normal for me. You know what I mean? There's certain things she can't. Yeah, you know what I mean? There's certain things she can't stand. And she still to this day would have issues with a loud bang at the door. You know what I mean? And she would still go into some sort of a traumatic state. She can't stand guns.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And me coming, and she couldn't stand officers. she ended up, she couldn't stand officers. You know what I mean? And so because she was exposed, you know what I mean, to bad officers, and a messed up lifestyle when it came to that type of abuse in the community, that type of substance abuse and selling. And at the end of the day, she would say, "I'd rather be broke." She would say, "I'd rather be broke and not have anything to have than have my family around than the opposite."
So I can, and you might be able to speak on it too, but just from a perspective of that, because I know you don't want to get too detailed into what your wife has told you and all that good stuff, but I'm open. I'm open to my story so people can hear it. Being traumatized at a young age about that is definitely serious. There's definitely things that I immediately take me right back to a situation. I can smell sugar cooking on the stove, like you know how you make candy, and it immediately takes me back because it's the same smell of somebody smoking crack. It's the same exact smell, so it immediately comes back to me. I just remember and seeing as a kid going around the corner and watching my pops, hit the pipe. That same exact smell is in that sugar. So that's a trauma that I understand.
I didn't know that.
It's this man, bruh.
I didn't know that.
Exact sugar cane, cocaine, this same exact smell, bruh. So that traumatization for me later on in life, and I still carry that. I still carry that. That was way back in the 80s, you know what I mean? Early 80s. So, and then, again, as a child, the trauma that it puts on you. I actually liked what I seen out of the guys that was selling. But at the same time, I'd seen how it affected my family. And it kind of was knowing my parents was on drugs at the time, how do y'all choose that over me? So it made me feel unloved, and that carried me with me for a long time, because you could keep choosing this drug, and you see I'm suffering. Or maybe you don't see that I'm suffering,
right?
But you can keep choosing that. You know what I'm saying? So that for a child, I don't think, but between 8 and 16, that was heavy. Cause you'll see them get off and then get back on. It's you keep choosing this over me, So of course it's selfish thoughts at those times, but that's trauma that you take on. And so I felt unloved, and then it carried on to relationship.
It's crazy because when you say that, you see it from your perspective, but then you got to look at the addict that is also the victim. You know what I'm saying?
Double victimization.
So it's exactly, perfect way to put it. It's kind of, it's like scaffolded almost, you know what I'm saying? Because they were also victims. And while you thought it was a lack of love, it was no, they're actually dealing with what they call now a sickness that they couldn't help, you know what I'm saying? And that's, from my perspective, I always dealt with the people that were dealing with that sickness as well, kind of as you stated. But I never felt that I wasn't as loved. I don't know, from a young age, I always felt like I understood, because I wouldn't feel that bad when something was taken from me. I would be mad and I'd be pissed off, but I kind of had an understanding as to why it was going on. You know what I mean? I started getting mad at the dealers. That's what pissed me off. I ain't look at them. I ain't really recognize the shine. But then when it got real troublesome was when those dealers were your family members. You know what I'm saying? So then it gets real thick when you start seeing your family members giving to your family. You man, now I'm really in a bind. Like I love you, but I hate you. You know what I'm saying? You don't even recognize what you're doing. And I guess as you stated, I still get mad at them now. You know what I mean? Not saying it's still going on, but I still kind of you played a role in us being in that situation that we were, and you weren't even smart enough as a man or as a woman to understand that's what you were doing. You know what I'm saying? Because you got caught up in what you wanted. That was selfish. You know what I mean? So.
And with me is by me being a former drug dealer, I didn't truly realize what I was doing, to the people around me, community or whatever, family, until when I was locked up, I took it actually was forced on me. And I had to take a drug education class. And I was like, why I'm taking this? I wasn't on drugs. But one of my charges was labeled drug abuse. So they assumed. But when I was in the class, it made me realize like what I was actually doing. Like the destruction I caused. And you know, by taking the class and just sitting back, thinking about the things I did and the reason why I sold drugs, I realized, man, I was like, man, why I do this? What was, there was really no reason for me to do it. But I used that reason or excuse for the wrong reasons. I just went at it like, okay, I can get a chance to make some money. And go the quick, easy route instead of taking the slow, long route. And, like we was discussing different things as far as how it affect addicts. In the long run, drug dealers are addicts too. Because I was thinking about the times, and I'm not trying to switch it and be like be like, oh, I'm a victim. No, I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is this. I realized, like, when the stuff I was going through, like when there's a drop, man, I was just like an addict. I couldn't wait till some drugs got in my hand so I could start back selling. Cooking it up, selling, do whatever I had to do. But when I'm going through that class, I'm sitting there thinking about stuff like that, I'm like, man. But what can you say or do? It's you went through it and you did it, but knowing the cause and effect that it came with, you look at it differently.
Correct, for sure. I mean, you say you're not a victim, but you are a victim at the same time, even though you're an addict yourself, because your whole reason for it was because your family was down. You know what I mean? You became a victim of, I gotta feed my family. You know, at a young age. Now, again, you said you could have went a different route, of course, but at that time, the glamour of it.
Exactly. I got caught up.
Yeah, it caught you up, and then it was the addiction that let it ride, because you could have got in, fed your family, and then went out. But the addiction is what kept you into it. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, it's a well-rounded victimization.
Yeah.
For sure. And with in the community's effect, what happens from it, in that sense, is I focus on the cause and effect of it, because, you know, sometimes I do, or sometimes in our discussions, we do get caught up in wrong and right. How wrong is it? How right is it versus my feeling or your feeling? But the cause and effect, the bottom line is I've never seen a community that has drugs heavily in there without seeing a whole bunch of crime. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen it. I've never seen a homeless area where homeless stay and where squatters are be a clean area. You know what I'm saying? And so sometimes you start connecting things. It's like, man, forget whether you think it's wrong, you think it's right, whether it's this or that. It's like, look at what it's doing. Let's pay attention to the facts of what's going on. I don't like it because this is what it does to us. I've seen the worst of my family. I've seen the worst of our city. I've seen the worst of the trash in the area. I've seen the worst crime. I can't trust it. You know what I mean? It made people volatile. And even to the point where we could even talk about when it comes to prescription drugs, whether you're using them according to the guidelines or not, or you're overdoing it. There's an effect that it has on your mindset. And, you know, and I used to take, and this is not comparison to anybody that was addicted, but I'm just saying, I used to take diet pills, and they would, you know, it was an adrenaline thing, but to make you lose weight, but it was also caffeine and, you know, do some stuff like that. But I have never had the most aggressive conversations in my life with my wife. The arguments would go from here all the way to here, and I would be trying to understand what is wrong with my head on why, You know what I'm saying? Like everything goes to 0 to 10. The most aggressive things. And I'm like, it's right for me. I'm allowed to be able to take these. But at the end of the day, the effect was saying something different.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I had to stop doing stuff, even because I wanted to slim down and look good. I had to sacrifice all that other stuff just to make sure that my mindset is right. The most important thing is right. You know, the effect is just jacked up.
You talked about prescription drugs. I mean, that is probably, that is the new thing, it seems now. I mean, a lot of people are addicted to prescription medication. Like, who do you blame for that? Is it the doctor?
Yeah,
Do you blame the doctor? Do you
can.
blame the system?
you can.
Like, and then how? I mean, it seems like they become the new dealer in some
No,
instances.
they have.
You know?
They have.
I mean, for sure. We can name some community.
Because
Call them out, huh?
Like, I'm gonna use my mother as an example. She got rheumatoid arthritis, and for the longest, they was ready to do surgery on her. Said she had carpal tunnel. She didn't. But the point I'm getting to. Once they found out that she had it, I think my mother was on like almost 30 pills at one time. Every one of them had a different side effect. One caused diarrhea, one caused constipation, one caused hair loss. I mean, it was so much different like side effects behind it. And she went to another doctor, and the doctor told her like, no, you take it too much. So he started.
Just wean her off of it.
Exactly. So that goes to what you're saying. Yes, doctors are new drug dealers, and these pills is not cheap.
Original drug dealers.
Yeah, the original.
They're the original.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest. They're the original.
Original and legal.
We go back all the way
Right.
back to
Do you think that there is a such thing as a victimless crime?
Not anymore. Not after the class.
So before class, you would say you did?
Yeah. Before a class,
Victimless
I'm
crime.
A victimless crime. Like, what would give an example of what prior to the class you would have viewed as a victimless crime?
I'll say two. One would be substance abuse, because I'm just hurting myself, if I am hurting myself. And the other one would be suicide.
Okay.
And dealing with substance abuse, one would think that it's either gratifying me, but it's something I'm doing and I'm not hurting you. If you're talking about the crime that I do because of the substance abuse, that's different. But there's a lot of functioning crackheads. There's a lot of functioning, people that's addicted. There's a lot of people that go to work and do everything they're supposed to do, but do that on. So what about those individuals? And at the end of the day, the response that their body has and the things that they're exposed to or they expose their children to, they still make direct or indirect victims. The people that I'm connected to, you know what I'm saying? The cat that come over and bring it, you know what I'm saying? Like even weed being legal, but since we've dropped the standard for it or whatever, people do what they feel. But at the end of the day, who does it connect me with? And does that have a risk of bringing somebody else back or bringing some other things back with who you are connected with? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's number one. From somebody, I struggled with depression for years before, and suicide wasn't something that was off the table. And I always talked to myself in my mind where, I always say to myself, like, I don't understand why anybody else cares. You know what I mean? Until I realized the effect that it had on my wife and stuff like that. And I had to realize where it came from, too. You know what I mean? Working in the prison system, being in the prison system, being in the county system, you see crazy stuff that I become nonchalant to seeing. And I had realized that was sort of me in reverse because I stopped caring what happened to somebody else because I see it all the time. Or they use it for manipulation or whatever. So I took that same reflection on myself. Was like, well, why do you care what I do? You know what I'm saying? If I'm gonna go, dive off this bridge, or if I'm gonna go, blow my head off, why is it that you care about it as much? And I didn't understand that. So yeah, I think because the effect is devastating.
Why do you call suicide a crime?
because the effect it has, crime being an offense against someone else or myself that has a negative effect on my community.
Say that again.
One that has a negative effect on my community, an offense against myself or someone else that has a negative effect on my community. So it just spreads out. Yeah.
I think a lot of people don't really get that. Like, suicide-wise, I'll be torn a lot of times. I'll be like, man, there's some strong people to do that. Then I'll be like, man, there's some weak people to do that.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it's, but you really don't, I don't believe, really understand the gravity of the decision that they're making. I understand a lot of times it's in moments of desperation or what have you, but they really don't understand.
Until they survive.
Until they survive, right. Until they survive, and then they can actually live to see the hurt that they cause.
Yeah.
But let me ask, so we're talking about, things to me that's obvious as far as like drugs, things like that. Most people are aware now of how devastating they are, right? But when we talk about victim awareness, let's talk about something like, because I one of my goals was, and is trying to get people to think about the decisions they make, regardless of what those decisions are, right? So, with this with the coronavirus happening and all this, you got all type of monies coming from the government. People doing all type of things to get these monies, right? How would you view that in the context of victim awareness? Do you think anyone is being victimized? If I falsify some forms to get an SBA loan or whatever the case may be, do you think that someone is being victimized in me doing that?
That's so funny. That's really a good point, man. I think that's a really good point. I would say yes. I would say yes because those funds, when people get found out from fraud, when the caught happens, of course, their family goes through something. But let's say, for instance, they never get caught, but they recognize that something is off on when they go back and they scan over documents and they go back and get audited. Those companies get audited. When those things happen, they make things tighter for us to get.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
They make stuff tighter for us to get. And it's like, I want to do the same doggone thing. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it starts to pinpoint what's inside of me, the love of money that's inside of me, and how much I'm willing to get to money. And I think that's the biggest issue, and that's the biggest crime to oneself and to one's family. I want money so bad that I am about to risk this, and that. That is victimizing everybody that's a part of me, indirectly or directly. That's victimizing us as a community, because now it's going to be harder for us to get certain things. There's going to be more red tape. There's going to be less funds available. A ban gets put on certain things. But on top of that, man, what happens is we end up getting exposed in some ways. And now my family has to deal with the embarrassment of it. I have to deal with the embarrassment of it. So, there's a victim there. But I used to think I was one of those, I thought that I was a philosopher when I was a young kid, you know what I'm saying? And I used to be like, all right, when I was a big time thief. Didn't start off that way until I got accused of being stealing. And I'm like, I'm gonna steal then. But I was a big time thief. And when I would go steal, I'd be like, man, I'm about to get caught. If I'm gonna get caught, I'm gonna get the best item I can. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I never stole. I had a reason in my mind that I'm like, I ain't gonna steal from, somebody personally, because I don't like that type of stuff. I'm gonna go steal from them. So as long as there was an attention on the man out there that I steal from, they got insurance. I'm gonna go steal from them. I'm gonna go rob them. I'm gonna go get their money. I ain't gonna victimize my neighbors. I'm gonna go over there and get that. And it was still causing the same problem. And it never stayed in bounds. It never stayed where it belonged.
Are you able to break down or make a connection between, say, going into the store and stealing something and how that affects the neighbor's 2 blocks away?
I think that's indirect. It's indirect, but it's definitely an effect. And I say that because when I'm being viewed, I'm always. Let's not even talk about the cameras. Let's just talk about like my standards. When I'm being viewed by people that look up to me, family members, somebody gonna know that you're stealing. Somebody see that. And so it affects people 2 blocks away because it affects on what that owner, the way that owner sees the people that come from that neighborhood. And it may not always be a fair stereotype. It may not always be a fair judgment. But if you look at how they classify us, that's how we're affected. And so why in the world on the east side of Cleveland is there so many bars and glass, you know what I'm saying, in every cash register, but yet you mess around and go a half hour away to Berea and everything's open season. Why is that only in our neighborhoods? You know what I'm saying? And so it starts to affect, all that little stuff starts to affect on how, you know, so you have to cut, I said, you have to cut sin off at the head. You know what I'm saying? Any little bit is.
I'm gonna call it direct. I'm gonna call it direct, and I'm gonna give you an example for those who have been in the community. Brian may know this. So Southside, Youngstown period don't have a grocery store within it. Doesn't have a grocery store. When we did have one, yeah, nothing inside of the city limits.
Outside of like Save-A-Lot.
Yeah, outside of Save-A-Lot for sure. Right. But look what Save-A-Lot in them is. They're right on that edge of where you can go. But so none on the south side, none on the east side. We had a great grocery store called Bottom Dollar that benefited the entire community. The elderly, you know, was right there. They had the best produce you can have. They ended up closing. They blamed it on stealing. They blamed it on like theft of merchandise, not only from community but from workers as well. So the direct effect is now we don't have a grocery store, as well as the grocery stores that may be looking in are saying this area isn't what I need because they closed because of theft. There's no way we're going to go in and make a profit. It doesn't even matter if we want to help that community. All these is who bought the building and then decided, no, we're not going in there. Like, so that's the direct connection of theft. Like, because it might not just be one person that's doing it. You know what I mean?
It never is.
Yeah. It's a
It never is.
and even at the affordable prices that they were.
I'm glad you pointed it out, right? Because that's a good point. And also, so let's say I go into the store and I have my way with them to the point where now they gotta close. But he has a grandmother who really depends on having access to the produce and things that grocery store provides, right? Now she don't have a grocery store that she can get produce from, right? And then what I'm about to say is not a far stretch, right? So now she don't have access to fresh produce or fresh vegetables, things like that, right? Because they took the grocery store out, right? And, you know, somebody might say, well, they got Instacart now. They got all this stuff. The point is, as a result of me stealing, this ain't far-fetched what I'm about to say. As a result of me stealing from this grocery store, and to the point where they say it's no financial gain for us to be here, they move. It can jeopardize his grandmother's life.
You killed your grandma.
Right? Especially in the area we are now, where they talk about one of the best way to fight coronavirus is have a healthy immune system, right? We know fresh vegetables and fruits and stuff is key to that. But if she can't get that, she's subject to a whole lot of other things, right? Or medications, anything, right? So I agree with you that and that's the rock, the pebble in the water, and it's skipping. You see the wave after wave. Excuse me. And even when you don't see the wave, it's a wave, but you just only understand it on a certain level, right? But I know when I sold drugs, you know, I was a baby. Like Like at the end of the day, I was a baby. But I really didn't realize, and now mind you, I grew up in a crack-infested home, right? Mm-hmm. I knew what Churro Boy was and burnt up kitchen spoons before I knew my ABCs good.
That was normal.
But that was normal. But so now you take that, so you take me being victimized by having a parents who were on drugs, so I wasn't given what I should have been given as a child, emotionally or whatever, and then I become a drug dealer. Now I'm doing the same thing, and in my head I rationalize, well, you know, if I don't do it, somebody else will, right? But I'm also rational by like they have a choice; they don't have to do it. Mm-hmm. So it was. I was almost kind of like schizophrenic because I hated to see my mother doing it, and it felt like she. I remember one time I went up on a corner because, you know, when you're an addict and you're a woman and you're an attractive woman, a lot of times dudes will tell you your money ain't no good.
Yeah.
So I remember going up on the corner one day with my pistol, and I said, man, if I find out any of y'all dudes tricking with my mother, I'm gonna kill y'all. Right? But as a drug dealer, I almost right. Not only was I doing the same thing, but it was like I was disassociating those two things.
Right. You weren't a part of it.
Like as if I wasn't a part of it.
How you question somebody about what they're doing when you were part of the game.
When I'm part of the game, right?
Could possibly been with some what
No, I was. No, I was. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't realize the gravity of that till obviously till I went to prison and I started, you know, going through a lot of manhood training and stuff like that. But I think we tend to, when we in the midst of those things, we tend to justify every action we have or every action we do, even if we do know that somebody's being harmed by it, right? I always say no one wants to, unless you're a sociopath, which that's a mental thing, unless you're a sociopath, no one wants to do anything just to purposely hurt somebody else. So I have to figure out a way to justify punching Keelan in the face. I got to, because I don't want to just punch him in the, even if I want to punch him in the face, I don't want nobody looking at me a certain way, so I got to find a reason to justify it and rationalize it in my head, right? And so that's what we do. I think with all crimes, we figure out how we can rationalize why we did or what we're about to do before we do it.
And we wonder why our parents feel like there's two sides to us. We wonder why our now wives and, you know what I mean, stuff like that, and family members like, man, there's two sides of you. I don't understand. One second you can flip over here, but the next second you over here. It's because you're used to splitting, like you said, splitting that mindset apart. And everybody has a reason. Everybody can come up with a reason. And when we stop looking at good and bad reasons, we'll start looking at what the reason, what my reason, is it worth will the ends justify the means? What devastation will it leave behind? And that's crazy that you said, as far as ripple effect with the community and grandmother not having what she needs, so she'll end up dying, because the next thing on there was barriers, was cultural barriers, a lack of resources within the community because of certain stereotypes and underserved populations. And so stuff stopped coming to the community because they don't feel safe to bring it there. You know what I mean? It's almost like a crime scene, or it's almost like a scene of an emergency situation. Somebody goes off and, let's say, shoot up something or whatever else like that. There's no ambulance coming in the middle of that. There's no fire department coming in the middle of that until that scene is safe. You know what I mean? And so they're not going to sacrifice more resources on something that's not a safe scene that's going to end up being consumed or dying. So it's the same thing. It's like they're not going to invest nothing into our community if they or except people that are worse as our community, except somebody that's just as corrupt as you. They'll do that. They'll be like, you go ahead and have that, and they'll even let you have it illegally. You know what I'm saying? They'll let you self-shop and do your thing illegally, but they won't put real care and real sources and real counselors and real, nice places. You know what I mean? Something that feels good to walk into. They won't put it in our community, and they'll underserve our community as long as that's the case.
So what do y'all say to the people that tear down the community to get what they got, to get what they currently have, but then they put back into it? So now they're building the community up.
False prophets.
You know what I mean? Because it happens all the time. I mean, how many times you see people that make big money and then, it makes them feel better because they do a turkey giveaway or they do a toy giveaway or they're giving shoes away. You know what I mean? Like, or they got a new center or whatever the case. I mean, do you forgive them because they're doing that now, or how does that work? What's y'all opinion on that?
It all depends. For me, it depends on your continuation.
So if you stop, then that's what you're saying?
If you have dedicated your life to turn around and then start making that, to start doing those things. Even when you were doing it for the positive, but now you determined I'm out of that life and really want to change. So like Shimmy is doing and Darnell are doing. That's a difference. But if you, that's like feeding a pig to eat it.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, eventually you still killing it.
Yeah.
You still killing it. But you feeding it all the best things you can. Fattening it up. To put it on your plate.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
good, man.
I mean,
That is great.
it's not like
I'm trying to.
He tried to play
I'm
devil's
trying
advocate.
to play devil's advocate. I mean, it's pros and cons, right?
yeah,
So I'm trying to play
sure.
devil's advocate, and I keep on coming up with this saying in Islam, and seeing how it can. Remember, I just said we try to rationalize stuff a lot of times, right? But how we can. So it's a saying in Islam that God brings good out of bad situations, right? So. Is that one of those situations where this person that made all this money selling drugs, but they built this community center for the kids, right? Is that one of those situations? And is it justifiable?
right.
Because he might argue, well, just argue. He might argue, well, the money that I made from selling drugs was going to be money that was been wasted by these people. But because they sold drugs, but because they bought drugs from me, I was able to take that money and build something good with it.
To heal the wounds that you created.
Did you create it or creating?
Oh, it depends.
You know what I'm saying?
If you stop, or if you're still going.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that to me would be the question on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. That you created, yeah, it would take that. We need it. You don't want to make more victims. I couldn't help what happened, what you did. We can't change that stuff.
Yeah.
But what you're creating, what do you want?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? What are we going to be attached to?
Right.
You know, I think that's the. I mean, but yeah, we grew up with those type of figures on. You know, those type of individuals. We've seen them. We grew up on TV. You know what I'm saying? Robin Hood idea. You know what I mean? And sometimes at the end of the day, even though God used it, is that something that He wants to use? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even though God used it, but does He want to use it? Because at the end of the day, it's about me being on a normal standing. It's about me being able to function healthy. And so even if that's the case and that was the state and that's where it was, is that how we want to function on a normal basis, on a healthy basis? Is that something, a standard that we want to have? Even though our community may have accepted it.
But as a community, how should we look at those people?
I don't know. It's tough.
Because one of the problems is we will, because someone does something good, we will absolve them of all the BS, right? So
Possibly, yeah.
you know this dude got 4 bodies over here under this dirt, but he passed out turkeys for Thanksgiving, and he passed out hams for Christmas. So you give him a pass on the fact that 4 families missing a loved one. We do it all the time. We do it all the time. So as a community, should we do that, or how should we look at that?
Again, it's double victimization. Because you appreciate the give back. Like as a community, you always want to appreciate that give back. And sometimes you got to suck it up, like, because it's so desperate.
But what about
The
your
need is-
grandma?
The need is so desperate, you're going to accept it.
But what about the grandma who back in the day wouldn't take that money from her son
Yeah.
because it was dope money?
But I bet she took that.
What, the
What,
turkey?
The turkey?
Yeah. But I bet she took that.
If she was aware.
'Cause
I would say if it was a grandmother
aware,
that didn't take the money from their son, if they knew this person getting off them turkeys, did it with drug money, she probably not gonna take that turkey either.
possibly.
If she knows.
Like you said, if she knows.
If she knows, yeah.
That's one of them cases I do think knowledge is power, you know, and I'm accountable to what I know. You know what I mean? If you know, if we came here under the idea we doing pros and cons, we you know what I'm saying, we all right with that. You know what I'm saying? But if we sat down here and under the idea of doing pros and cons and there's different agendas mixed with it, you know what I mean? That's sabotage. So me knowing is the power in that situation. Me knowing what we're getting ourselves into. So that person's intentions and me knowing that person's intentions is important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I also think it also helps direct, indirect as well, because a turkey is a little indirect. It's indirect. So it's something that you still got to look at. It's indirect, but money is direct. I just came here from that spot, stealing from somebody, and I'm bringing it directly to your house. This is money that I just got from so-and-so. That's direct. That makes us feel more responsible. But we also do have to look at indirect as well. I just showed up with a bunch of groceries. You know what I'm saying? I think it's an individual basis, but I do think that knowledge is power at that moment. There's times where, you know, we have some family members that have boosted. You know what I'm saying? Sure. But when you make yourself obvious, I'm responsible for that. So I can't do it now. I can't do it because it's obvious now. You know what I mean? And I'm more responsible than not knowing.
I guess I'm going to go to the opposite side a little bit because, you know, in a lot of instances, I was raised by drug dealers. You know what I mean? And they gave me a lot of the knowledge that was necessary for me to become the man that I am. You know what I'm saying? And without them, and maybe without those lessons that they learned from what they were doing, I wouldn't have gotten them. You know what I mean? In the situation. So it's such a fine line. It's such a fine line to it because being a drug dealer doesn't exactly make you I'm gonna pose that question. Does being a drug dealer make you a bad person?
No, I don't believe so. I don't believe it makes you a bad person.
That's a tough.
But the reason I say I don't believe it makes you a bad person is because my personal philosophy is you aren't what you did. Right? So whether it be a drug dealer, whether it be a stick-up boy, whether it be a thief, like, unless it's
That's tough.
It doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a terrible judge of character. It makes you. That's
why I said that I think it's more of a yes and no, because it all depends on the individual. Like you have, I'm not.
Intention.
Yeah, because you have some that's this say, for instance, like I seen the TV show, and as we talk about the TV show, this one TV series keep coming to mind. Chicago PD, where they kept trying to get this guy. They know the guy was selling drugs. They kept trying to get it. But what he was doing was, the money he was making, he was giving back to the community. Like, you may have a young guy that's good at football, one good at basketball. He's making sure that they have everything that they need to not go that route.
I've seen that episode.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So that's why I say it depends on the individual, like you said, the intent. Because at the end of the day, when they did catch him, he told the police basically like this: y'all locking me up is not gonna do Chicago any good. Y'all only gonna do it destroy it. I've been keeping the peace in Chicago with the drugs I'm selling. So the police was agreeing with him,
Yeah.
and let them out.
So it's like a necessary evil, in a sense.
Yeah.
Like without me.
Yeah.
It's gonna be worse.
Yeah.
See,
But they knew it because of the things that he was doing. He was doing negative stuff by selling drugs, but he was doing positive by bringing some of the young guys up in the community.
So
to make
does
sure they go to college.
so does the ends justify the means?
I would say
in that, yeah.
I'm looking at it in a situation where
That's why I said
so
it's
all
so
the
low.
people that you're helping, is that equivalent to all the people that you're destroying?
I think when you balance, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No,
I think when you balance the scales that way, I don't think it's a proper comparison because it means that I'm doing good and getting good. Going back to what I feel like is cause and effect. What am I causing? That's what I feel like. Forget whether you bad or good in a sense. What am I causing? Because bad or good in comparison to who? Because I can always find somebody worse than me. You know what I'm saying? So I can keep going in my bad or good. Good intentions, bad. It don't save lives. Good intentions don't save lives. You know what I'm saying? What are you doing? Did you stop that person from going in my house? Did you stop that person? Did you call the police for me? If at the end of the day, if it don't save a life, at the end of the day, if it doesn't help, it may be accepted. That's one thing, but it definitely don't decide whether or not bad or good is on the table. There's that saying in law where it says fruit of the poisonous tree. So in the thought backwards, we have rights as citizens. You know what I'm saying? So is it right just because an officer know that you selling dope for sure? Is it right for him to tap your phone and put a recording in your house illegally? You know what I'm saying? So he can catch you and know what you're doing. Is that right? You know. And so at the end of the day, in reverse, yeah, I'm taking one off the street. But when we do it the improper way, I cannot fight a good fight. I cannot fight a good fight in that way. I can't fight it the way the grimy person is going to fight it. I have to have. Now this is going to go into something else, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to, but I understand the Nat Turner mindset. I understand it, but I don't condone it.
Right.
I understand where you became desensitized. I mean, but at the end of the day, what freedom fighter organization didn't become just the same as their oppressors?
Yeah.
What organization? You know what I'm saying? When they became, and that's the problem, that's the issue with war, because when they became the on top individuals, they started oppressing the people in the same way. You know what I'm saying? So you can't contain this thing once you start it. So we have to look at the cause, because you may have had good intentions.
Oppression is oppression, no matter where it comes from. And that's that scenario from that. He still was oppressing the people. Just because he was giving back doesn't mean he wasn't, killing them. Again, feeding the pig.
Yeah.
I mean, to eat it. Yeah. And that's one of the reasons. That type of scenario was one of the reasons why. A few years back, we developed like organizations together. Kind of decided like we gotta take that spiel and do it ourselves. Like, don't let them do that. Don't let them come into the communities and kind of do that. We gonna find a way, no matter how it is. Like, as positive organizations, as businesses, especially the black businesses, we gotta show that we're supporting the community. And so we went out heavy that year, 2 years in a row actually, just giving back, just giving turkeys, giving dances, giving whatever, giving bike giveaways and stuff like that to the community all year long, selecting families that we donate Christmas presents to, just so the attraction was we might positively influence another organization to continue to do the same thing, so we don't have that person that, like you said, looks like they trying to help, but it's actually killing, like, almost weeding them out. Like, y'all not even gonna get a chance to do
necessary.
Yeah, to do what we doing. So that was kind of one of the strategies we took, and it definitely it was. I enjoyed both of those years, like fully, but then it just didn't gravitate towards everybody taking on that full.
Well, let me ask to the Youngstown people, back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, mafia. Now we got a lot of random shootings. What does it feel like? Does it feel like I'd rather have organized crime where they got organized hits, or does it feel like random? I'd rather deal with the random. You know what I'm saying? And I'm asking truly, like I really want to pick your mind because it kind of feels the same way to me. Where it's like that we had the town. You know what I'm saying? Before they took us down, the FBI took us down. We had the town, and wasn't nothing done unless we said it was going to be done.
I don't really see a difference. I mean, to be honest, I mean,
As far as killings?
as far as people dying and losing their lives, I mean, it's the same. Whether it's organized well, where it's an organized hit and it's done a little more cleanly, I guess you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Compared to you just, it just happened right around the corner, just broad daylight, just right then and there. I don't know if there's really a difference. I mean, I think they just had more power over an entire city, compared to somebody that may just have a block. You know what I'm saying, or a neighborhood, if you want to say that. But I don't believe
Just a savage.
Yeah,
I would say
that is that.
I would just say we're organized and just maybe a little more structure where certain things wasn't happening, but let somebody say, yeah, you can do that. To like you were saying, like ones that's not organized, where they be reckless. They see somebody and they trying to shoot the person who they got problems with, but hit everybody else, and the person they trying to hit is just standing there. So that right there is like, okay, that's why they called it innocent bystander.
Right.
And it'd be more, I just say the one that's more organized is not going to get done unless somebody give it a go, compared to one that's reckless and hit everybody else and then brag about it and don't care that you missed the person you're trying to get.
Gotcha.
I don't see a big difference. Because mom didn't care nothing about what was going on in the hood.
Exactly.
Unless somehow it affected their money. Other than that, they can care less whether we was killing each other or not. They don't care nothing about us. So I don't really see no big difference. At the end of the day, we die. We killing each other and we die. You know what I'm saying?
But the thing is, you gotta remember this. He was saying back the 50s and the 60s. The 50s and the 60s, we wasn't killing each other. Everybody else was killing us. We wasn't killing each other. Our crime rate back then was so low, don't make sense. Because in the 70s, for every one black, there was like 7 white people locked up.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It switched.
Fun fact.
Wow.
It switched over in the 80s and 90s.
When crack came.
So now it's like for every 1 white, there's 7 blacks. Every 1 white, there's 3 or 4 Hispanics. So back then, our crime rate, we didn't have no crime rate.
Inner city, as far as inner city.
And truthfully,
murders
if you know any history about Crips and Blood, the Crips was created to protect their neighborhood because of other groups coming in trying to do stuff against blacks. When you had the Black Panthers, they made sure that they protect elderlies, make sure they got groceries, make sure the kids got lunch and breakfast for school. You know, they took care of the community. Hoover didn't like it, so he put destruction on the black community by taking them out. So that's when the point came when they said for every 1 black, there was 7 white. Then it switched.
Hoover was one of the most destructive people in American history for the black culture.
You said Hoover? Oh yeah, definitely.
I think if it all equals devastation, I still have to say if it's the same result, it's the same thing in a different form, you know?
That goes back to your point. I mean, it's the cause. Like, what's the effect, I should say. What's the effect that this action is having?
And I'll even be transparent and say, at some point in time, I had to decide what kind of officer I was going to be. You know, there was a dude that came in, and we understand, like, you know, when somebody do something, somebody that's foul, we have our feelings about that, you know. And there was somebody that came in that did something to somebody that was one of my peoples that was foul. So I was looking for a reason to get him. That's exactly what I was looking for a reason. So when I approached Cat, you know, and I'm being over aggressive, over the top and stuff like that, And dude is like, man, look, no, this is here. And I'm like, man, if I really want to get this, he ain't getting upset. If I really want to get this dude, I'm gonna have to just lie about something and say I did something or something like that. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't be that type of person. I need to decide what I did was bad enough. You know what I mean? Just trying to, provoke you was bad enough. Like, I had to decide what kind of officer I was going to be because I can't fight fire with fire because I'll lose myself in this thing. Mm-hmm. I'll lose my humanity. I'll lose who I am. I'll lose my Christianity. I'll lose who I am and my faith trying to become something just to beat something that I see that's terrible. And I won't be no different than anybody else. I won't be no different than that little boy that turned into a school shooting because he got bullied. Won't be no different. You know what I mean? And so that's my thoughts on that. It's at the end of the day, if that's the cause and the effect, I have to attribute myself to the same issue. And that's why you still got people that's in the system or working for the system that's lost and messed up and doing foul stuff and lying about it because they have become just as corrupt. Trying to fight fire with fire, I can't do it.
So I want to give you 5 minutes to give us what you feel you want to give us as far as victim awareness, the impact. It's almost like last remarks. If someone wants to, if they're interested in learning more about it, where they can go, how they can contact you, so on and so forth.
Well, I would say I won't take 5 minutes because I think I love expressing with y'all. I love feeding off of y'all, and so I appreciate that. And I would say victim awareness made me aware of the results and the consequences of my actions to other people, and I don't have to have an offender tag for that to be me. Mm-hmm. I don't have that. I took this course in hopes to facilitate it for other people, and I ended up becoming more stable myself, in the process of looking at the information and how things affect us as people and what caused me to think this way. And so I definitely would suggest it for anybody that's coming out and re-entering into the community. You can take my email. My work email is jessehoward@odrc.state.oh.us, and I can at least point you in the right direction to link up with somebody. They're doing them online now, of course, but I like the personal engagement. So when we start that again and I can participate in that, that'll be, hopefully we can point in the right direction for that.
So I appreciate you coming, bro.
Appreciate the conversation.
I believe we did something. If it's not just at the end of the day, man, if we just ain't doing nothing but enlightening somebody. When I used to teach my class in the joint, I used to always tell people, I'm not a teacher. Like, I'm not standing up here as an expert on keeping you out of prison. What I'm gonna do is give you what I know, right? What I'm gonna do is give you the mistakes that I made, and I'm gonna give you the blueprint that I've created for myself to help me get out of prison. But don't look at me as no expert. At the end of the day, my job is to give you the information. So if you decide to do whatever it is you decide to do, you can't say nobody never tell you. That's all it is. You can't say that nobody never tell you and try to give you a blueprint to do something other than what you was about to do. So when you're sitting up in there, take that work. Stand up under it.
Right.
Because one person, did try to say something to you.
That's real.
So I appreciate that, man. I definitely appreciate you showing up for us.
Thank you.
Y'all want to say anything?
I'm good. I think we had a great conversation. I really would like to do a second one on this though. Like, I think it's important, like, to continue that conversation, because people don't realize they're victims or don't realize they're victimizing somebody. So whether it's a continuation of this one or just
well, I definitely would love to
go
do
over it again.
This again. I would definitely love to have Sabrina back on again, because mental health, like, we have to really address that aggressively. I think we have to address mental health as aggressively as we address or trying to address the violence in our community. Because in large part, they go hand in hand.
Yeah.
We have some, when I say mental health, when I'm thinking about mental health, I don't think about, the dude who you see rocking in the chair like this or something. I'm thinking, we have some messed up ways of thinking based off of what we've been through as a community. And as a result of those ways of thinking, violence happens.
Yeah.
So they hand in hand, man. I have found myself and continue to find myself when I make a decision, ask myself, am I making this decision based off the trauma that I've been through? Am I making this decision based off the 26 years in prison that I've done? Am I making this decision off of Joe Normal, how Joe Normal would think? Like, that's exhausting.
Yeah, it is.
That's exhausting.
A lot of hats to wear.
That's a lot of hats, man. And unfortunately, some gonna fall from time to time, right? That's why I really try to make sure I'm proud to say I go see my therapist on every Thursday, man. I ain't talking to him, man, because, I have zero desire to break the law again, ever, you know what I'm saying, anything like that. But you still don't know sometimes the residual effects of the things that you've been through until you're in the midst of it. Like, I always tell people, when you're in prison, you isolated from a lot of stuff. And a lot of emotional growth comes from stimuli, right? Trials, tribulations, experiences, all this. So if you're encapsulated in these walls for all this amount of time, your emotional growth is very, very slow. So now you get out here, I get out here and I'm put in this environment and it's just like all of this stuff hitting me, woo. And it's stuff that I didn't even think that I had to address because for 26 years it hasn't been an issue for me. Now I gotta address this stuff. But how do I address this stuff? Because I wasn't even preparing for this stuff while I was in prison. I didn't even, this like almost this football season, this the linebacker hitting you on the blind side. You know what I'm saying? How do you prepare for this stuff? I'm confident and grateful that I've equipped myself with enough information that I know I'm not going to react in a way that's going to get me in trouble, in prison or not like that. But you still question when it comes to relationships, whether it be with a female or your homeboy, whether it be your son or your mama. You know what I'm saying? You still question, am I reacting normally? Is this a normal reaction? Just for some of us, we don't even know what a normal reaction is. We ain't had an example of a normal reaction. If I've been in the house where my mama got beat my whole life,
that was your norm.
That was my, you know what I'm saying? But intellectually, I know it ain't normal.
Right.
But where's the blueprint? Where's the for me to sit down and say, okay, yeah, I'm gonna put that. I can't do that. We're gonna do this. So I think those two are hand in hand. I think I would really like us to tackle them more.
Yeah.
I'll definitely, if you have any time you want to come back on, man, and talk about some stuff, man, more than welcome. We just now getting our footing on this. We filling it out. We kind of know where we know where we want to go with it, what we're trying to do with it. So we're gonna get there.
Well, that's a blessing, man. I appreciate y'all having me out, man. And anytime I can do anything, man. I love chopping it up with y'all. I love hearing y'all thought process, man. We don't do it enough, and I'm glad we're doing it more now because it died out. You know what I mean? I do this podcast called Perspective of a Black Man, and it's because our communities don't have perspective of a black man. I don't know. My dad never sat down with me and told me how he views the world. You know what I mean? Love him to death, but he just never conversated about how he views the world. And so I love talking to y'all about the views and the different things. So I appreciate it, man.
So with that being said, man, and for everyone who tuned in, we appreciate it, the support. Hopefully the support grows as we grow. I gotta learn a sign off or something. I gotta get a sign off or something, man.
Russell Simmons, thanks for coming out. God bless you.
There it is, right there. Peace.
I didn't know it was still on.
That's too.